Good morning. Welcome to the 10:30 a.m. October 15th UED meeting. Item number 1, I call this meeting to order. Item number 2, rezoning application CO 21 for property located at south of the southwest corner of East 63rd Street South and South 150th Avenue. Looks like TMAPC voted 902 for approval of CO 21 zoning, and obviously Susan is going to tell us about it.
Thank you. So this is,
Oh, no, we don't do these, do we?
oh,
I tried to enlarge it.
okay, so this is a site that's just on the west side of 169. It's between Jack Wills and, I guess, a pool sales company. This is, let's see, Counselor Stechter right in Lincoln aren't here, but this development plan is, okay, so let me back up. So this is actually zoned corridor, which is a very strange zoning that doesn't mean much until a development plan comes in, and that's what's happening with this application. So, can't really tell much here, but why is it not moving forward?
It's not moving forward.
Because, here.
If you hit Control minus, I tried to enlarge it. There we go.
So that the property owner wants to do, this is hard to say, sod sales. So he's moving an operation in Bixby to this location. So this is about about 4 acres in size. It's not a sod farm, but they're going to sell sod out of it. Fairly recently, you had the application to Jack Wells to the south, which I think they're doing infrastructure work on that site now. So the development plan is almost exactly like the one for Jack Wells that's being built to the south. So it's in line with that sort of construction, business service theme that's along here with the pools and the sod and the Jack Wells, and then of course that's Mathis Brothers further south. So, so that's really the summary of it. We did not hear from any neighbors on this one. There is some residential to the, there you go, big open field. And it is part of the regional center, so it was intended to be uses like this, retail type of regional uses. And it was unanimously recommended for approval. Again, we didn't hear from anyone about this.
This is the operation that's off of Memorial.
Yes, South Memorial,
Okay. So they're just moving or they're expanding?
moving.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I guess
Okay.
the other may be prime residential or something at this
Oh.
point.
Okay. Any other questions or comments, counselors? Item number 3, resolution number 2946-1075, the Tulsa Metro Area Planning Commission pursuant to Title 19. It's like sections 863.7, adopting an amendment to the comprehensive plan, changing the land use designation from neighborhood to multiple use on approximately 0.46 acres located south of the southeast corner of 51st Street, South Delaware. TMAPC voted 9-0 to approve the resolution.
And the next one too.
Oh, next one too?
Same.
Okay. So item number 4, rezoning application Z7833 from RS2 to CG with an ODP for property located at the southeast corner of East 51st Street, South Delaware. TMAPC also voted 9-0 to approve CG zoning with ODP.
Okay, so this is a really unique situation. We weren't sure about it at first. It is a residential lot tucked up, south of 51st Street on Delaware. It is a unique, can't see that at all, unique little area as far as the uses around it. PSO substation is to the south. There's a lot of multifamily to the north, to the east. You can see the self-storage over on the east further as well. So the 2 requests here are a land use amendment to multiple use, which you can see it's really on the edge of that already, the multiple uses to the north, and a zoning request to CG, Commercial General, with a development plan, and the purpose of the development plan, or the purpose of needing to ask for CG because they want to do an office warehouse here, like office in the front, warehouse in the back, maybe some kind of business. And CG does offer or allow some pretty intense uses, so we didn't want those to be just allowed readily in this area when you're getting really close to residential. So the development plan is very close to being office light, but it does allow, it gets you to that office warehouse that they wanted to do. And we did not hear from anyone. Again, it's a unique lot sandwiched between, you know, a PSO substation and multifamily to the north, really just not that far off 51st Street. So this, again, we didn't hear from anyone. It was unanimously recommended for approval.
Sorry, what was in the ODP, Susan?
What was in the ODP?
Right.
It's
Was that where the exceptions were built in?
Yeah, so the ODP on this one significantly restricts uses, but also, it does have some screening on the Delaware side, because there is a home across the street. So
Right.
it requires extra screening, significantly reduces the uses, to really be more in line with office light, which, let me see what the zoning is around there. Oh, I can't see that, but, because there's a lot along that stretch.
Mine,
Yeah, there's all kinds
I'm
of
fine.
zoning.
You are?
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just curious. I was like,
It's a weird piece of land and
It's
the
very weird.
PSO is right next to it, so
Yeah.
whatever. Good.
well, the odd thing is, in certain neighborhoods where there's pieces of property that are undeveloped, you get more concerned about certain things.
Yeah, but it's a lot, it actually works,
Okay.
I think. And if the neighbors haven't said anything,
Yeah.
then I'm, drove by it, I'm good.
I think it's pretty limited on probably what,
What can happen?
yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Item number 5, rezoning application Z7832 from RS3 and IL to IM for multiple properties located west of the southwest corner of West 37th Place South and South Elwood. TMAPC voted 9-0 to approve IM zoning in District 2.
So this is something we've been talking to a company about for a while. It's Elion. It's a battery storage company. It's really unique, and I guess it's something we might be seeing more of in time. So it's really a yard full of batteries that look about, and I've only seen renderings of it, that look about the size of a pod or a trailer, you know, that you store.
Wait, that's a battery?
It's a battery, so there's really a
Like a
field.
lithium battery?
No, it's a battery storage for, like, almost like a generator for PSO. They get the power from
Oh,
PSO and really
okay.
store the power when, it's almost like serves as a generator if there's a need for power,
So it's like an UPS, a
Yeah.
backup power.
Yes, it is,
For commercial,
or just for PSO, so.
just to sustain the grid? Is that
Right,
the-
so it's,
Sorry, I see
so
someone
it's
nodding
something
who
that's
works
getting
there, I'm
really,
guessing.
something that's getting, I guess, you know, getting pretty typical around the country, so we'll see how much we see it. I know they've had a lot of them in Texas. So anyway, this is the concept, so we really had to think about it, look at it. It is a request to industrial moderate, which you can see, this is an area kind of full of that, right? You have a lot to the south. IL, they will still, because it is considered a major utility, they're still going to need to go to the Board of Adjustment and ask for that. It's a special exception everywhere.
Clarifying question. Does this require, and I see that there's someone who might be an expert that's like, so this may end up being a question for you. Since it's like battery storage, does this require cooling or like a certain amount of water to, I'm just trying to understand how it
Yeah.
functions. Is that something you can speak to?
Yeah, a little
If you don't mind coming to this
Yeah,
table, I'm sorry. The reason I'm asking is, and I know this came up at one of the Mammoth community meetings the other night, is that we know that, and we've seen this out of like Corpus Christi, Texas, or places like that, where the more industry, data centers, you know, lithium battery plants, all sorts of things that you have, it's a strain on kind of like water resources, and I've been trying to get a grasp when we're doing stuff like this, and I understand that PSO like needs to strengthen the grid to make sure we have capacity.
Right.
But then I'm like, does this also use a certain amount of another resource, or what is this? Can you explain
Yeah.
that more to us?
So, Preston Bartley, I'm with Westwood Professional Services, so we're a civil engineer. So, I'm not an expert in this, but our firm does a lot of like this type of work, so
So nor is he the applicant.
nor am I the
Okay.
applicant.
Just wanna
But you
clear
know,
Sorry.
okay, that's a good clarification, but yeah, if you could tell us a little bit more about what
Yeah, so
this use is.
So a good term to like look up and search would be BESS, BESS. It's battery energy storage systems or something like that. But basically, yeah, they're like pods that hold batteries. So for a lot of times you see them around like renewable energy sources or close to like grid sources. So it can take energy that's being generated at not peak times and store it so then it can send it to the grid at peak times. Because like, you know, with like wind and solar it's not, there's a lot of energy that gets lost if there's not demand for it. So these are kind of popping up in a lot of places. You're seeing them come into more urban areas as well for situations like this, so.
So if you're Googling, it's Elion Energy, E-L-I-O-N. Energy is the company that,
And then is this one of those things where it's like a technology that's shrinking? Is that something we know, like you might not know? I'm just like was curious if it's like it needs this much space today and then in like 5 years.
We've seen some that are like a couple hundred acres and then some that are like on the smaller scale.
And this
It
is
all-
a small one.
Yeah, it depends
Oh.
honestly on, like it's, there's different capacities. Like there are companies that do like really large scale in like rural areas and then there are companies that do it for more like urban settings.
How many are stored there?
so this is a large, it will cover this side or these multiple parcels, which is over 6 acres. So it'll be a big battery
And
yard.
this isn't far from some residential, it
Yeah.
looks like. Is this something that like, do these blow up?
So
Like,
let me,
you know, like-
let me talk about that. So there were homes on, you know, this is not an area, just to go to the land use map, this is not an area, this is an area in great transition right now. And only people we heard from really were some of the neighbors to the north that were also interested in someone buying out their house. So I think it's not, it's an area that's clearly transitioning and people are knowing that live there and wanting to move. So, yeah, not heavily residential in character. There's a lot of industrial uses. And the zoning is, you can tell, there's not a lot left in residential zoning there.
I'm sorry, how many houses did you say?
I don't know, this is a total of 14 properties. I don't know how many houses still stand on those properties, but it's real
Okay, so
scattered.
it's not heavily populated,
No.
so even if they're. I
And I'm
think
not
the
sure that
concern
all-
you were expressing, Counselor, was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the fallout might be.
Well, it's just like if, you know,
If
lightning
something
struck
were
I mean,
to happen.
I understand that in any urban city setting, there are lots of things that actually, sorry, not to like, don't want to like discover people, but you know, like, things can happen with lots of different energy, infrastructure, gas, et cetera, so I get that that's a risk that we all may be more proximal to than we realize just by living in a city, but, so like, are there other ones that are already in Tulsa?
Not here. I mean,
Or
we haven't
nearby,
seen
or-
any come through our
Yeah,
office.
I've heard of some like in northeast Oklahoma, but like a lot of times you see like the large scale ones in like rural areas where there's like wind and renewables close by.
But I do think, well, they have to be by a power source, right? So this is close to PSO, so
Yeah.
that's the
Okay.
advantage here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if lightning struck one of these,
I'm honestly not sure.
yeah, okay.
But it's a good question.
He didn't expect to be the expert.
We do have a lot of
Yeah.
lightning
Yeah.
strikes, so I'm just wondering how this would react.
Yeah.
Okay.
BESS is a good term.
Yeah, I'm looking it up.
Yeah, ChatGPT can give you a crash course about
But
it.
then we'll need these more if we use ChatGPT to tell us this.
Yeah, true, that is very true.
Yeah, and the AI data
Double-edged
centers.
sword.
yeah.
There's just a lot of land use to store a lot of
Oh, I'm
private
rolling.
companies' cloud stuff. Okay.
Hold on now.
I'm getting ahead of ourselves, are we?
Any other questions on this? Preston, thank you.
Yeah,
All right, now, thank you so much.
No problem.
All right, takes care of item 5. Flip the page and on to 6. All right. Rezoning application Z7834 from RS1 to AGR for property located north of the northwest corner of East 11th Street South and South 193rd. TMAPC voted 9-0-0 to recommend approval of AGR zoning.
Okay, so this is it's really two parcels. I think there might be a combination coming. This is a residential parcel. I don't think there's anything on it right now. Someone wants to build a house, and AGR, the main difference, I think, or the benefit to this particular property owner is they want to do a larger accessory building, which makes sense since it's a larger parcel. So they may also combine the parcels, because you can't have on one lot of house and one lot of accessory building, because it has to be accessory to something. So I think they may combine the lot, and that's as kind of simple as it is.
Yep.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good. I know it was coming. Okay, item number 7, Z7835 from AG to RS5 for property located at the southwest corner of East 41st Street South and 145th East Avenue. Preston, this is you again. Recommend approval by TMAPC 9-0 for RS5.
This is the one that you were
I
corresponding on,
know.
Counselor.
I feel bad about
No,
it.
no, feel bad. So this is right on the border of District 6 and 7 and used to be in District 6, so 2 counselors now have engaged on this.
So this is really, this is pretty, this is large for us. We don't usually have something so large. So it's 160 acres, I believe, so it's a quarter section. With a total of proposed, of course, this is a concept, this is just the straight zoning here. I think there's 624 lots proposed. And it's RS5. We did receive 3 letters with different concerns, a lot that you hear, such as traffic, and wanting a traffic study. I think those are probably the 2 main ones that we heard. And then people, we had someone concerned about where all the wildlife gonna go, or the cows that are on the site, and things like that. So, but we didn't have any speakers at the planning commission. We didn't have anyone come out, which was, was good. So, anyway, so let me show you. So this is currently AG, proposed to go to RS5. Some of the lots won't be as small as RS5 requires. There's a mixture of lots. And I know that Preston, I think, there you go. He handed out a revised version. I forgot that when I put this together yesterday, but there is a revised version, and I believe, and it's really kind of minor, but I believe the changes, and again, this is concept, this is not what you're voting on, but this is the outcome that's intended. But the changes, I think they work to address some issues from surrounding property owners, really was the cause for the changes. This is different.
Counselor?
Yeah, just for point of reference, to the south of that is Rosa Parks Elementary and Union Schools. You can see it's already residential on either side. This is also where the newest firehouse went a few years back, knowing that we were growing to the east. Obviously, I'm very supportive of this kind of housing going in. Right now, there's cows that graze there, so I think that might be some of the wildlife. In fact, when I was redistricted and drove this new part of the district, I went, oh, I have cows in the district now, which is very uncharacteristic for the whole of District 7. So I think this is great. You can see there's levels of density, kind of, not density, but
Just lot sizes.
lot sizes, and to me, it looks like a planned neighborhood, not unlike some of the other ones in town, where you could start maybe with a smaller house and grow, or start with a bigger house and downsize and still get to stay in your neighborhood, which is appealing for folks. So I think this is great. I love that the TMAPC voted 9-0, and I'm supportive, and I know that Councilor Bangle had conversations as well. And just for the traffic piece, so Improve Our Tulsa 3, Councilor Bangle and I pushed to get widening dollars and improvement for that corridor, knowing that that's the next big area that people want to develop in. So good for us for thinking ahead.
Yep.
And tacking on our widening wishes, as Councilor Lakin was expressing his. So I don't know the timing of that. Obviously, we pass something and then 6, 7, 8 years later, funding starts to come together, but I think design and everything's already been done on that corridor, so. As we talked about last week, we get rooftops, then we get retail, then we get widening and infrastructure improvement, so this will definitely help spur some of that.
Did they have a subsequent
community engagement.
Not to my
You guys
knowledge.
had another one.
It's gonna be, I think we just sent out notices for the Monday before the council meeting. I think
Okay.
it was just, they were mailed out,
Next Monday, don't we have a community meeting with the mayor too, the day?
So as part of that expansion and the conversations that I had, Preston, you want to come up to the table a little bit?
So it's the 20th. A bunch of us are at a different community meeting that
Okay,
night, so.
let me tell-
Oh, no, that's, our community meeting's on Tuesday.
Oh,
What time is it on that Monday?
Let me double check.
My other job that pays me has a community meeting that night.
Okay. Yeah, because I know that the Robson companies, the developers,
Mhm.
were planning on coordinating with you on that too, so.
Well,
I'll
I'm
just-
definitely not available on the 20th.
Okay, let me see. I believe it was the,
Or do we-
I believe it was the 20, but let me circle
Okay.
back and I'll have Kevin or Davis reach out to you.
Maybe I could
So one of the other things.
bribe my friend at the end of the
As part
table
of
to
this
go.
discussion was the potential of also putting in a neighborhood market.
Mm,
And leveraging that relationship, because I think we've gone beyond proof of need in this corridor to needing some sort of neighborhood market to kind of retain some of our sales tax
on this side.
leakage. So I like this because it has multiple lot widths. It's unique to East Tulsa as far as this kind of design. I heard the same things, traffic, especially speed along the hill near Rosa Parks, you know, about putting in potentially some signage to slow traffic down, which obviously not everybody adheres to, so.
Well, enforcement, right?
Yep, exactly. So that's what we'll have to deal with. So anyway, I like this as
Okay.
well.
Yeah. So if the meeting's on the 20th, I can't be there, but maybe someone else can.
Yep, absolutely.
Let me I'll follow
Okay.
up and make sure.
And wait, the 20th of this month? Yeah.
Yeah.
I won't make it.
Okay.
I'll be out of country, so.
Oh, yeah. And then the 21st, we have the mayor's community conversation, so those
Okay.
2 nights are
We'll get it scheduled.
kind of rough.
Let me, yeah, I'll confirm and I'll.
We'll have the
let you
votes
know.
on the
Yeah.
22nd, so.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Thank you, Preston.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 8, rezoning application Z7836 from RS3 to CG with an ODP. What is this? Northwest corner of East 63rd Street South and South 101st East Avenue, requested by Tulsa Industrial in District 7. MAPC voted 9-0 to approve CG zoning with an ODP.
Okay, so this is about 3 acres, a couple of lots, I think, put together. You're probably familiar with this corridor. You've got Miller Swim School and some other sporting kind of venues along Mingo there to the west. So the intent here is to, it's a request to CG with an optional development plan, really just limiting the uses down a little bit, not as much as the one we saw earlier in the neighborhood. But CG can get pretty intense, so it was, again, needed to get to CG because they wanted the same concept we talked about earlier, which is an office warehouse type of use there. So we don't know what type of business, but that is the intent of the application. So we didn't hear from anyone, and it was unanimously recommended for approval.
Just on East 63rd Street, so it says OL, but all those parcels to the east and to the north are all RS3. It's just hard to tell on that.
It is,
Key.
yeah, this is.
But you can tell there's a lot of corridor zoning and already
Right,
commercial
corridor
use on that
zoning.
side.
Yeah, there's RS3 around,
Is that, these little ones are all RS3?
yes,
Okay, so this is gonna stay RS3?
for now, yeah, until.
Okay.
decided.
But yeah, I
You can-
mean, just all of this character is
You
already.
can tell,
Yeah,
like, it's very scattered as far
Mhm.
as what uses are going on.
and I think that's the old practice field for Union, right?
I think so.
This is like one of the only neighborhoods in District 7 that I haven't found that has like a name, or it's just like a collection of older homes, I think pre-existing all the development. Because when I knock doors over there, it's like very rural character right there on the backside of like all that development. And most of the people I've talked to over the years are well into their 70s, 80s, and 90s. So I just think it's a little part of the town, of the district, kind of wedged between Mingo and the highway. That's just slowly, over the years, been built out on the corridor.
And you can see this is the land use map. So the land use
Yeah.
map envisions multiple uses here, not necessarily, continuation of the neighborhood over time. So,
Okay. We are on to item number 9, ordinance amending the fiscal year budget. Thank you, Susan. Ordinance amending the fiscal year 25-26 budget to make supplemental appropriations of $49,859 from unappropriated fund balance within the Public Works non-federal grant sub-fund, citywide traffic engineering signal installation, repair, and replacement.
Christy Baskell
Christy.
here for Jared. So I do apologize, we did not get our slides this week. Things fall apart when Jared's not here. So I'll just try to walk through this. This is some reimbursement we received from an insurance claim when someone hit one of our traffic signals. And so this is just appropriating money to help offset that cost of replacement.
Is that all it costs to hit a traffic signal? It's $50,000.
It's all we got. I don't know that it's, all it costs.
Looking for where they need replacing?
Oh, yeah, we have a lot of places. I think they're backlogged. Okay, any questions or comments on item 9? All right, item number 10, ordinance amending the fiscal year 25-26 budget to make supplemental appropriations of, $53,805,000 recognized from unappropriated fund balance within the 2020 GO bond, issue 6 sub-funds, streets, sidewalks, and bridges.
And item 11 goes well with this, if you want to read it as
Sure.
well.
Ordinance amending the 25-26 budget to make supplemental appropriations of $53,900,000. Unappropriated fund balance within the 2024 GO bond issue 5 sub-fund. Public Works Department, Parks, Culture, and Recreation Department, and Finance. That's why you wanted me to read it. This included you.
One be included. So we did our bond sale and that has closed, and this is just appropriating those projects that were a part of that bond sale. So as planned, those projects that would have went with the bond issuance approval.
Yes, sir.
Just want to say, even though there's no slides up there in our backup, there's a very detailed list of how it all breaks out. I don't want anyone to think that we're just glossing over $53 million
Yeah.
without knowing how it's going to break out. So for anyone interested, click
You want me to
on the
pull it
agenda.
up? Yeah, and this would have been what was in the bond package.
Yeah.
Yep.
Should not be any surprises here.
It's a beautiful orange.
Not mine.
Oh, it's one of Vanessa's. What do you have in there?
Vanessa, you're ringing.
Okay, no questions or comments on 10 or 11? All right, on to item 12. Ordinance amending the 25-26 budget to make supplemental appropriations of $260,000 from grant revenues to be received from the George Kaiser Family Foundation and Community Care Oklahoma within the Social and Economic Development Non-Federal Grant Sub-Fund. This is for the Office of Health and Wellbeing.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Happy to provide some clarity that's been lacking on a few things. One, we'll start with the purpose of the Office of Health and Wellbeing, and we'll talk about sustainability plans and then how the money is being used, if that's okay.
Remind everybody real quick who you are.
Yeah, so Dr. Jabran Pasha, Senior Advisor for Community Health in the Mayor's Office. So the Office of Health and Wellbeing, we're going to serve several purposes. Most pressing is the city's mental health work is now under this office. We are overseeing the Tulsa Children's Mental Health Grant, which is now in year 3. It's a $4 million federal grant, and then also helping to coordinate the mental health efforts, especially given the recent cuts, working with community partners to develop a citywide plan on how to address the mental health needs. We also are working really closely with the planning office to partner on the Neighborhood Conditions Index to start to build some actual health outcomes into that. And so we can utilize that wonderful tool to also know how we're doing from a health perspective at a neighborhood level. Additionally, we are convening really all of the healthcare stakeholders in the city, in the Mayor's Health Coalition, to get together, find shared challenges, find some shared insights, find ways to share resources. There's an expectation that there's going to be a lot of cuts to funding and a lot more uninsured folks. So we're trying to get ahead of it and kind of work collectively as a city to address those issues as we anticipate them coming. Sustainability-wise, it was very clear to me when we had our initial conversations about this office that there would be no general funds available to support it. So the agreement that the mayor and I had was bring me on, and my job was to raise money externally, which that's what I spent the first 6 months doing. And fundamentally, I believe that really the healthcare stakeholders should fund this, because if this works out well, they're going to save money. And so with Community Care stepping up as the big first big donor, I'm anticipating that that's going to continue. We've had really good conversations with other insurers and our health systems. Actually had a really good conversation with Cherokee Nation, so the expectation is that sustainability should not be an issue, and there's no plans for this to come out of general funds. In terms of the $260,000, we are funding one new position, which is the Director of Programs. That individual will really work on compliance and kind of help guide any programming that we are joining forces with in the community. An example of that, we are in the final round of a $21 million TSET grant that's going to, if we get it, it's going to bring 9 miles of biking trails to the city, 6 new primary care physicians, more clinic space, a new track and field in North Tulsa. It's a very comprehensive collaboration base. There's 9 partners, and that's really what the office is meant to do, is to bring folks in the community that are already doing the work together, finding ways to join forces and improve the health of the city. The Director of Programming will also be responsible for writing grants to continue to fund this office's work. There's also a $45,000 of that will go towards my salary as I'm getting a title change as Chief Health Officer. The remaining portion of my salary will remain in the mayor's office's budget.
Counselor Dr. Wright.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I'm taking notes. Welcome to our table.
Yeah, sure.
And thank you, Mr. Miller, for being here too. So I like the idea that it's going to have a convening aspect. And the 9 partners on the TSET grant, are we the lead agency on that? Okay, so tell me a little bit about how this office is conceptualized, given the fact that we have a Tulsa City County Health Department.
Yeah, absolutely. The health department is going to remain our public health entity. They are actually in a spot now where they are having trouble doing a lot of work that they had been doing before. So a lot of their neighborhood-based work is now, they are unable to do it because of cuts or mandates from the federal government. And so a lot of their programming that were in communities that had the most need are no longer there. And so Dr. Dar and I have a really good relationship. We're hoping to partner with them, fill gaps that are no longer being filled by them. And we're not a healthcare delivery organization. That's the health department. That's the broad, healthcare community at large. We are bringing partners to the table. And so health department, they do our public health. They deliver health services. We are much different in terms of just convening, trying to bring money in to support a lot of the work that's already being done.
On the staffing side, is it just it's going to be a 2-person office, you and this Director of Programs?
Well, we also have the director, the grant manager for the Tulsa Children's Mental Health grant. And then we are kind of taking some time to figure out the best way to fill the chief mental health officer role.
So that's still gonna be in play?
Yeah.
Okay, but under you?
Yes.
Okay, and then, chief health officer, does that mean we're going civil service on that? Or is it
So that's not been brought up to me. I don't know the answer to the question.
this
That
bifurcated?
would be,
The
That may
can
be
you
a
just
question.
talk more about the bifurcated revenue sources that you were talking about? Like 45 would come from this grant, and what was
Yeah.
the other part?
The remaining portion will be from the mayor's office, which is supporting my senior advisor salary as it is now.
I see, okay. Two things more. So we had the 3H task force, health, mental health, housing, and we met with a lot of the medical community, including mental health, but also just the hospital groups and stuff. So I would encourage, if you haven't already, go back and look at some of the things we discussed, because they were really talking about, during COVID, one of the things we got right was having like a step down outside of their facilities with the high acuity needs of some of our repeat utilizers. And speaking of utilizers, you know, we're having an ongoing conversation about pre-hospital healthcare, so I'd love to have you get to know the work we've been doing from a policy side on that. Obviously, alternative response is part of it, but not the only part that we've been looking at. And then the final thing is the equality indicators. Obviously, I have a lot of health data, so I'm hoping to see some of that maybe pulled into what y'all are looking at. I don't want to assume one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. I worked with Melanie Poulter
Mm-hmm.
kind of early on when I started, and that data's critical to what we're trying to do.
Great, thank you so much.
Counselor Dulles.
Yeah, as a clarifying, and maybe this will come back up, I think this might be a question for Mike. Because I know it's like it's, you know, right, it's kind of setting up an office, but I can hear the efficiency piece of like, hey, this is actually absorbing existing work into one place, like with the mental health piece or some of these grants and, you know, administering and applying. Would this be something where if this is coming on, or maybe this is just me naming, like if this is gonna come on to the general fund or we're setting up a more robust office, is that something that we can like specifically flag? I'm just thinking during like the budget draft and the upcoming, like when something's migrating in that way, is that?
yeah, certainly. I think we've had discussions about, are there grant-funded positions that the general fund may need to absorb in the future?
Right.
I think you've heard reassurances from Dr. Pasha that
Yeah.
that is not the plan. And I would certainly think that any time through this department or through this, or through our Office of Mental Health or Office of Public Health, forgive me, Dr. Pasha.
Health and well-being.
Health and well-being,
It's all new,
forgive me.
right? It's all new.
Anything under this would certainly meet that qualification, and even because this discussion be flagged at a high level. Were that to be the case, were that to that
Yeah.
policy shift from the current design.
That makes sense. And then I'm curious with like, for instance, that really large TSET application that's in process, if we get that, I'm sure that has a certain amount of like administrative overhead. Is there an idea that some of like, that would then backfill some of the other like costs long-term? You know, I'm just thinking about like is that a multi-year?
It's a multi-year.
Okay.
Really, all the funds are really allocated, and almost none of them are with the city. They're with the community partners, or they're with capital projects that are building assets in the community. There's a grant manager that's funded with that, and then there would be some sort of in-kind time from our director of programs that would also work with that grant for compliance.
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, I guess I was thinking through if it was like, if we used it as a multi-year, depending on what's baked into that budget, if there's a way to make, you know, or I wasn't sure if that's like a longer term strategy too, or like this is also just like a food for thought kind of inquiry, where knowing that there's X amount of things that are, you know, pointed out the mayor's office, but there could be like cost savings if there's grant funding that then helps fund some of those salaries because of the administrative time. Is that like something that could be pursued, or that or is that a strategy that you think is worth taking?
Yes, I think it's a very wise strategy as we look at grants now and in the future, is what the allowable administrative burden is through the granting agency and how that can be applied internally.
Okay.
And to offset costs that we may have of people certainly administering those grants. at every level, right? I mean, from, there's HR costs and finance costs, as well as direct costs from people working on the grants.
Okay, that's helpful, because I think I was trying to understand the difference of like, there's certain things that are being kind of grown or scaled, and I know some of it's actually just streamlining what sounds like kind of partnership, community investment, but at the same time, part of me does get curious, as we get curious in how they can help
Yeah.
fund or right-size things that are already there
Yeah.
without it, that's not about growing or scaling so much as kind of like backfilling.
Yeah, and we looked at that with the TSET grant. They would not fund positions that were already in place.
Yeah, I
So
know,
it
a
had
lot
to
of
be-
government
it had to be
grants.
new positions, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense, thank you.
Okay, so I just have a quick question here, before we go back to the other counselors. Help me understand, why do we need a chief mental health officer and a chief health officer?
Yeah.
Do these folks dance in different squares, or would
Yeah, I
we
think,
not think that the
Yeah.
same person would handle
I think that's a fair.
everything that's physical and mental?
That's a fair question. So I'm an internal medicine physician, and, as a primary care physician, we do treat and address mental health needs. But I'm not a mental health expert. They overlap, but to meet the needs of what the city has in terms of their mental health, we need someone whose background is purely mental health. And so that's the reason for it.
Okay, so what I'm trying to figure out when I see expansion, right, that's a question I need to ask, right? The costs that are associated with it. Great, we're using grant funding, that which we should do when we have that ability. But this kind of looks like, forgive me, what I would call the individual contributor, right? Who would this be in this position? So really, I mean, I kind of understood Dr. Hubbard, right, and what role she filled. What I'm really trying to understand, and forgive me, this isn't about you personally, I'm trying to understand why we don't have that expertise available to us where someone is able to handle this, because to me, the human body and the mind all belong in the same container.
Sure.
So
I have
that's
an
the
answer to
problem that
this.
I'm trying to.
Can I take a stab at this, Dr.
Yeah, and then I have an analogy as well.
As someone with a background in neuroscience, no, actually, my reason would actually be that there's like the community public health side of it, which I know you have a lot of experience, and Dr. Pasch, like, we work together in a separate space, so I can like speak to that. However, with Dr. Hubbard and that specific expertise, to me, that's more than like the clinical knowledge set. It's actually about that really specific structure of the mental health system and the social work system, and that's a whole different, like when we think about the community partners, et cetera, that kind of has existed, unfortunately not incredibly integrated into the rest of our kind of healthcare system. So there's kind of niche things there where you have like your social workers, there's clinical social workers, but otherwise when you talk about like different mental health services, how it integrates with the justice system and so much else, it kind of does live in its own bubble of expertise navigating that. To me, it's that system and those professionals that's a bit different than the rest of the public health infrastructure. I don't know if that.
I think that's a great explanation, and then I would also add that mental health is a specialty, right? Much like orthopedics is a specialty, right? As a primary care doctor, somebody has a hurt knee, most things I can take care of. They need a knee replacement, they need an orthopedist, right? And so these are overlapping fields, but they are distinct. And if we want to do this right, we have to get someone who lives in that space and knows that space much more than a primary care doctor does, and a community health expert. We need someone who lives in that space and understands the systems as well as just that niche of mental health. So I think that's the reasoning behind it.
Okay, let me go back
That was a
to
good question.
my colleagues.
Yeah, great.
Counselor Dutton, you were next.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of tack on with that as well, that the brain and the actual physical body itself aren't always connecting with the proper synapses. So that's where we have to have the distinction between mental health and the physical, because you can still be walking and talking and look normal to people, but your brain may very well be malfunctioning. So the difference there is that that's a whole different side of science that it tells more than knowing that you need a knee replacement. And, so. that-
Thank you for not looking at me when you say all
Oh,
that.
sorry.
Walking, talking, and looking normal.
We applaud you
Yeah.
for doing that.
Thank you. We do applaud you for that. But, and I appreciate your explanation and your question,
Mhm.
because they are very distinct. But I was also wondering about a defined mission for this particular department. I'm reading what it may or may not do. But I think if we could get something defined as to what sort of outcomes we're even trying to get from having this department, and steps that are going to lead to the outcomes that we want to see, other than being a liaison for partnering organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we don't have great health outcomes in this state. We don't have great outcomes in this city, right? And we've got wide gaps in life expectancy across our city, right? And so we want it to be the case that where you were born doesn't dictate how long of a life you live and how well that life is, right? And so addressing these life expectancy gaps, addressing this chronic disease burden that we have. We have high rates of diabetes, we have high rates of heart disease. And we want to do that via the system that's already in place, which is this broad healthcare landscape that we have. Bringing them together, they operate in silos. If we can collaborate, we can address these in a much more efficient way. So that's part of it. And then on the data side, the more data that we can build into this incredible tool that no other city has in the Neighborhood Conditions Index, we can then see where we need to put resources. We can see where the problem areas are, and then we can help direct the healthcare landscape to those areas and bring resources to those areas to address those needs.
So tracking the outcomes will just happen as they come.
I'm sorry?
Tracking the outcomes will just happen as they come. That'll all be part of the process.
Right. And that the data part is critical, because there's a lot of things we just don't know.
Right.
Because we don't have the data together in a place where we can manage it and analyze it. And so that's a big component of what we're doing, is just being able to ask those questions of how we're doing. We don't have answers right now.
I love that you're going to use the MCI and
I think it's incredible.
the quality
It's-
indicators.
yeah.
They do work hand in hand.
Absolutely.
Really great, deep dive knowledge, so.
It's impressive.
Thank you.
So those are going to be your KPIs for success?
Yeah, and then when we have a mental health expert on the team, we're gonna then develop a mental health strategy as well. And so that'll have a kind of separate KPIs as well.
Counselor Dr. Ray.
Thank you. I appreciate the questions of my colleagues, because that's what I've written here. What are the deliverables? How are we measuring the outcomes? I think it would be imperative that we, if we don't have one yet, immediately get a mission, vision, and strategy outlined, because we are talking about expansion of municipal government, and I'm struggling.
Yeah.
I don't want to layer onto you, but we're looking at an Office of Family, Children, and Youth that's got a growing price tag. You just stated all the needs. I don't think $260,000 is like the end place. It's
Right.
like where we're starting,
Sure,
and
yeah.
we just heard 21 million. Should we acquire that? Won't go to staffing, but at some point, there's, I would argue that government's not always the best place to do things for people, because it's subject to a lot of influences that I just think sitting outside of us. I think we've seen that with housing and homelessness, right? We had a policy person in-house on homelessness to get us started a few years ago. That person then went out and launched a nonprofit, and that all sits outside the city. We're actively involved, but we're not the sole kind of centralized place for it. So I just have concerns that in a short amount of time, we're kind of going real wide, and certainly we all are aware of the needs. I don't think anyone's denying that, like, there's not the needs. I think it's more like the approach. So I would love to see, if the goal is to diminish or completely get rid of that gap in life expectancy, which we know has been reflected on quality indicators. That's why the previous mayor, you know, it was like a plank in his platform. Like, how do we strategically and methodically work towards that? And then what are those KPIs and checkpoints to say we're on the pathway or we're not? Because I think, you know, there's got to be immediate, mid, and then long-term. And a lot of this does dovetail, right? As we stabilize housing and those things, then some of these other issues start to also resolve. I come from a food security background, and so, you know, we talk about food deserts and comorbidities with diabetes and things. So they're not, you can't just like silo them all, and that's the part of this I'm most interested in, but I am worried about mission creep for a municipal government that is funded by tax dollars, where every year we are literally scrimping down to like increments of $50,000 on just sustaining like our basic core services. And a large part is public safety, and right now the major deliverable or the people responsible for delivering healthcare from the municipal side is the fire department. So when we continue to have conversations about how we don't have dollars for them and then we're doing stuff like this, it makes me real nervous. I think it's all worthwhile work. I think it's, there's lots of partners in town that do somehow get into silos, and I think sometimes it's the funding sources that kind of create that. But I'm just real cautious right now, also knowing that there's a lot of unknowns upstream of us in terms of dollars, in terms of the funding environment. I'm glad that there's TSET and opioid dollars that maybe up until now we haven't been able to go after in a coordinated way. But, and I am interested in finding a way to insulate ourselves a little bit from the roller coaster we're on right now with COPES, right? Every time the state goes, oops, we made an accounting error or whatever their issue is, we're like looking at a $4 million gap in this very critical infrastructure that we have woven into our public safety strategy. So I want to be real clear, I'm not opposed to any of this. I'm just cautious because we're doing a lot of building out right now with not a lot of depth on the transparency piece, the mission, vision, strategy, and I recognize you kind of have to launch before you can do all that, but
a few weeks old now.
yeah, but we're going to definitely need to see that sooner than later. So I don't know how we get there, but especially as we start talking about budget and where we go from here on dollars. So.
Mike, did you have some input?
I did want to say that I think what Councilor Dr. Wright is saying makes a lot of sense, and so I appreciate what Councilor Billis said earlier as far as having some guardrails in place, right? And that we've identified those today, and we've kind of spoken them publicly about the guardrails around public funding, and I think that we should take, I would just want to personally take a moment to thank Dr. Pasha for finding private money, which is what we want to do. We want to leverage our city and taxpayer dollars to find private dollars to do good in our community, and this is an opportunity to do that. And I greatly appreciate that. Finding additional resources, and sometimes those additional resources are focused in a way they want to be focused, and maybe not at COPES or maybe not at this other thing, but when we find them and they're aligned with our mission and our outcomes, that makes me feel good that we're finding additional partners to come on board. And so I just wanted to identify that the concerns being expressed are very real and valid, and that the guardrails in place will help us keep focused on making sure that we're bringing additional revenues to the city to make this happen.
Councilor Billis.
Yeah, and something I wanted to verbalize, I think, to my colleagues, because it's a conversation I know Dr. Pasha and I had, and I think, like, what Mike just shared touches on it as well, is some of this, because, we have other agenda items coming up that I think have back to the same question, which I think ends up being that philosophical, what's the role of government, or what do we want to take on? And historically, right, like, however many years ago, not just this body, like the mayor's office previously under Mayor Bynum had been really reticent to get involved in housing, right? That was something that was like, hey, that's not the city's role. We do streets and sidewalks. We're not going to do that. And then over time, that became very clearly something the city absolutely had to take on. And so we do that now. And so I think as some of these different things related to, like whether it's like youth and family outcomes, health outcomes, et cetera, I think we end up in that same kind of almost like philosophical question of like,
hey, is that something we do here? And I acknowledge other types of city governments, like when you look at like New York City, they have their health department and their school board underneath that same umbrella, and we have these different pieces, and I think that makes it a more complex conversation here. But I also think, and again, to me, this is just more of us thinking longer term related to an office like this, and just more broadly, when we do have this state and federal instability that we're seeing when it comes to funding or things like that, we keep ending up back in that spot of, okay, someone's gonna have to do something or create some more stability locally. I mean, it just keeps coming back to our table, like, is that something that our city takes on, and then what does that look like for us to long-term sustain? So I appreciate, Dr. Pasha, your lens on kind of like some of those sustaining factors and bringing partners to the table. And I do wanna highlight, to us within this agenda item, that we're looking at private philanthropy paired with a, like, you know, private, like, insurance payer source, so that's already kind of starting to stack up some of those, like, resiliencies funding-wise for work like this, so if, like, that's, to me, that's a good starting trend, because that's more stable dollars than we have for things from the state right now, or once Medicaid cuts come into play in a few more months or a year, premiums go up, like, that's all really unstable, so at least our, like, kind of like local partners are actually in some ways more stable right now. Just my dissertation.
Okay. Jackie?
Yeah,
Or
I
sorry,
just-
Counselor Dutton,
That's
sorry
okay.
about that.
That's okay. No big deal. So, along with Counselor Dr. Wright's and Counselor Ballas's dissertation and comments, I appreciate you as well. That's why I think it's imperative that we have a defined mission. I know that Mike just talked about having a mission, and so in order for the community, I think, to feel confident in a department, we have to have a defined mission that they can understand and relate to and have expectations of how the money is being spent. And so, I appreciate that the city is taking this on, but like Counselor Dr. Wright did talk about the different cuts from the state and the federal government coming down the pipes, that it's important that it be outlined and clear for the community to understand, to have that support. And so that's really what I would like to see more than anything, is just a clear, defined mission with expectations and outcomes that could be pursued. Thank you.
Counselor Dr.
Thank
Lynch.
you. And just to tag on to everything that's been discussed here, so yes, in 2018, 2019, there were vigorous debates around this table and upstairs about does the city have a role in housing and homelessness? There were people that said no, it's not for us to get involved. There were people like me that were like, if we're not involved, how do we move the needle on some very specific gaps? And so I think pandemic really accelerated all the issues that were already happening. We did get an infusion of dollars to help try some things that now we're able to scale and commit to. But the other thing that we did do is really identify what exclusively can the city do, or what should we do? And so we really settled in on like permanent supportive housing and some of these places that the private sector just cannot pencil out when it comes to developing housing or even providing the wraparound services and things. So I just would love for us to use that model, learn from that model as we start to engage in these other areas. We really need to focus in on if the answer is yes, this needs to become a municipal function, which I think some of us at this table are still struggling with. We have several colleagues out today. I would have loved to have heard their perspective on this. So if the answer is yes, municipal government does have a role for all the reasons that Councilor Bellis just flagged, then what is that role outside of just being the convener, which, you know, we all acknowledge when you're in silos, that's part of the battle, right? Getting started and not necessarily duplicating services or diluting services, but really like synergizing. But then also what specifically in this space of mental health and physical health is the responsibility of the city going to be? And I would say, for me, if we could tie it back to the things that we already do, paramedic services and some of these other things, I think we can make a stronger case to our constituents about how this is just amplifying areas that we're already leaning into versus creating like new stuff. So the questions I asked today about, you know, we already have a health department, these kinds of things, there's other nonprofit healthcare providers in town, Community Health Connection, you know, just long-established, community-based. We have like the embedded clinics, right, in some of those schools. So that's where constituents are like, why is the city jumping in here? And I don't have clear answers yet, so I know you need time to kind of do that, but I hope that like in the next quarter or two, we have like a very clear picture of what the mission and vision are, but also the strategies to get to those deliverables. And we're gonna need to do checkbacks because we do hold the purse strings, and I appreciate that the commitment is that we're gonna go grant funded. We have heard that story before, previous administrations and now, and best laid plans, and then you get in and things start to, like, the growth is going faster than the grants can come in, right? So as long as we're all committed to like really sticking to public-private partnerships, I think that would be better, because we do find ourselves in a budget, you know, negotiation where we have a huge spreadsheet of already grant-funded positions that we've inherited from past initiatives that many of us are still committed to, but we're still trying to figure out how to get onto the general fund as we're in entering like in a fiscal environment of uncertainty, right? So I think it would be important to have, I think we asked some of the other new chief officers to come back like on a quarterly basis or something, and so maybe we just create an interval where we're having this kind of conversation, and maybe like a 10-slide deck or 5, just kind of like, this is what we've done, this is where we're going, this is what we've seen, this is something we thought we could do, but we can't. These are dollars that we became aware of now that we're organized and have someone focused in on that. But I would just, the more that we can go, not just external partners, but look to the partners within the city that are also doing, like Tulsa Planning, but also the fire department. Even the police department has like embedded, you know, COPEs and things. So the way we can like wrap back, I think would be really important for me to feel like we're stepping into a space that makes sense.
And to take one more whip on that dead horse of expansion, to me, when government starts inserting itself, to me, it's an indication that the public sector, or the private sector, is not meeting the needs of the public. I'm a little challenged with that message, because that's what it kind of says to me. So if we can determine, as Councilor Dr. Wright said, not being more than just a convener of the different entities that are doing this work, if we can see, granted that it is grant funding, and as Councilor Dr. Wright said, some of that does end up in the general fund at some point, because grants dry up, missions change. And I know the 3H task force met a lot over a 2-year period. So I'm wondering why the same issue that existed, this didn't come out of that discussion of needing this specific position. So I really want to understand it. I really want to understand how the city sees our providers out in the private sector, whether it's Parkside, whether it's Creoaks, whoever it is providing mental health. To me, when the government says, hey, we have to create a position for this, that means that our private community is not doing their job. And that's really what this signals to me.
I think
It's not just the expansion of the government, but the government inserting itself where, to me, it has to explain why it's putting itself out there.
and I think it's helping them meet the need. The need it has outgrown the services that we can provide, and that's the same for primary care, that's the same for mental health. And so the idea is that if we can break down these silos, we can have a little bit more efficiency, or hopefully more than just a little bit more efficiency, to meet that need in a greater way.
And I think, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
That I can see your point pretty clearly, that we're still contingent on state and federal funding of programs, and it trickles down to municipalities. And so, to say that sometimes they're not maybe doing what they should do, they're dependent on funding just as much as anybody else. And so, this is a real tricky subject, I think, on money and who's doing what, when and where.
Oh yeah, funding is always a landmine.
Well, and with the state and the federal government influencing how money gets dispersed is, it's a pretty big deal.
Well, thank you very much for the robust
Thank you.
discussion. We appreciate you coming. Okay. If we can, we will move on to item 13. Thank you for that discussion. Ordinance amending the fiscal year 25-26 budget to make supplemental appropriations of $1,060,000 recognized from unappropriated fund balance within the Social and Economic Development Non-Federal Grant Subfund Housing Small Business Loan Fund. Is this you again, Christie?
It is me again. This is continued from last week's discussion. Jared was here, and so I'm just trying to come back and hopefully answer those questions. This is to appropriate some funds for TEDC to do a small business housing loan fund. And kind of the origin, it came out of the ARPA working group. TEDC had submitted an application, and originally the group wanted to do it. And then after we did some more review and working with TEDC on what the requirements would be long-term with federal grant funding, we decided that it probably wasn't, administratively, it would be a big burden to do that through the ARPA funds. And so we were looking for alternative funding to do that because the project was desired. I believe the conversation was before my time in this role, but I understand it to be tied to one of the Path to Home initiatives, which I've added here. The funding is coming from repaid funds from the Business Recovery, Resilience and Recovery Loan Fund that happened to also have been done by TEDC. That was funded in the 2017 Vision Package under the program Citywide and Route 66 Beautification and Reinvestment Program. So I hope that answers some of the open questions from last week, but happy to try to answer any more questions.
My brain is broken.
I know, well, I'm trying to remember, I'm like looking at it, can you help us, because I know, just so you know, for your context from last week too,
Yeah.
where we were trying to
Do you mind
compare
if
some
I
of this.
come over here so I
Yeah,
can
thank you so much,
see?
Sarah. Can you help us refresh, because I think part of all of our pause is that when we were discussing this last week, it was tied with like two other items that were
Yeah.
things were moving around and we
Yeah.
were.
So
Refresh
there's-
us on our own questions, Sarah.
Sure. So there's
Yeah.
still a second item which
Yeah.
we'll get to, but I
Right.
would keep them separate because
Okay.
it gets a little confusing.
Well,
And that's
others
why we're
came
already-
back in from
Yeah.
retail redevelopment.
So, like as Christy mentioned, the 2017 Vision Package had an $11 million bucket of funds, and that bucket of funds split through policy discussions, and that was the intention of developing the Vision Package into 3 different small buckets. So it's Route 66. So you get all your neon sign grants and all that stuff out of that. Citywide beautification, which is where your signs stuff is coming from, and those Route 66 signs that are coming in, that's from that second bucket. And then the third bucket was for commercial revitalization funds. And so when the council at the time developed the Vision Package, they did some tours. So there was like Crystal City, 61st Memorial area, things like that. So these funds then were placed into a fund there. The BRT comes online in the same capital package. And so those, and the retail strategy, which I think both District 7 counselors had been involved in at that time. So that was the intention of those funds. Then a pandemic hit, and the small business community needed support to stay afloat. So you dedicated about $1.1 million to a COVID small business support, but it was a revolving loan fund. So that deployed out through TEDC at the time. They were short-term loans, so those loans are coming back in. When those loans return back in, it's a policy call on how you want to utilize funds. So your first question was, where did these funds come from? So that's the history of the funds. Your second kind of, and it's a policy call for the council, is do you want to use these funds now in this way. This ARPA application came in, and I thought this was what this was last week, but I wasn't sure. I had to go back and review. They, in the second round, I think, of nonprofit grants, this applied. And then that's when the ARPA working group was advised that this maybe didn't quite meet ARPA, but it scored well, and it was a desired need. So the policy question you have here is, do you want to use those commercial revitalization funds in order to support this effort?
You had her and then me, I think.
Counselor Dr. Wright.
Thank you, Sarah, for being our brains. And for the,
Oh, it also aligned with the Path to Home strategy. So the ARPA applications were coming through at the same time Path to Home was being finalized. And so there were 33 action steps. This was one of them. This 99% of the action steps have been in progress on Path to Home. This was the one of two, I think, that was still outstanding.
Path to Home is out of the 3H task force.
Correct,
For
yes.
anyone who's following along with all our fun names at home.
Lengthy years of planning and work.
Yeah, so the 3 buckets, this 1.06 or whatever it is, coming back to us, but out of the 3 buckets, it came out of the 3rd bucket.
The third one I described, yeah.
Yes, and that, if I'm remembering, out of the 11 million, had about a $3 million allocation?
It's either 3.6 or 3.7.
Okay.
It's one of those two numbers.
And so it did this, 1.1 million, and then there's another loan fund that TEDC does that does retail.
Right, but the intention, when we put it on the ballot, was that we would break out 3.6 for commercial, and now we're shifting it to housing small business loan. So, help me understand what a housing small business loan is.
So I do want to clarify, like the 3.6, it has been divided and is being used that way. This is
Sort
the,
of. I mean,
yeah.
it got real sprinkled on the BRT, which was not not the intent, so we had to go back and re-clarify how that should be used. I don't know if y'all remember, but when the BRT went down Peoria, just because we didn't have clarity, all the dollars were really sprinkled on the corridor, and so some of us who were like, hold on a second, I think some of these dollars were really intended to be around the city. We kind of had to bring it back to the table and have a conversation. So I forget when that
With the
was.
beautification or?
No, the commercial.
The commercial fund, so originally, when a policy was developed by, the entity that does our economic development, it focused a portion of those funds, I think 1.5 million, just straight on the BRT.
Like half the dollars.
The council's concern at that time, was that the BRT didn't exist at the time you developed this package. And so you needed to remember to include, it was the 36th Street North Corridor, Crystal City, several places on Memorial. The retail strategy, places there's about 12 or 13 sites. And so now when you look at the retail incentive policy, you will see those 13 or so sites, and the BRT, as well as recognize that that is now a place in the policy direction that you would like to see funds. And that also includes some critical areas that you were focused on anyway. So you'll see all of those potentially included when a project applies for those funds.
So to acknowledge what
yeah.
Ms. Bascal just shared, yes, there are dollars going into that strategy. But if we're taking 1.1 off of the 3.6, it's 1/3. Directing to something else that we think is important. I just feel like knowing that our revenues are driven by retail. I will say the Shields discussion started around this fund. We realized we didn't have the dollars we needed, so then we looked at other tools and ended up with a TIF. So it can lead to other discussions when you have those dollars sitting there for that purpose. I just worry, I don't want to be cavalier, but $1.1 million out of 3.6 for something that's very focused in on retail, which we have the same entity has contracted a third party to go get the big fish. I just worry that we're not going to have those dollars, or we're going to creep into these other places of we need the dollars, but we don't have them, so then we're doing these other kind of things. So I'm just very cautious about that. Obviously, my district is really heavy retail, and there was a time when this was first conceived for only new development. We came back and said, redevelopment's important too, especially post-pandemic when so many of those strip malls and stuff were just desolate, and lots of us have districts right now with whole blocks worth of empty retail, which the strategy is to bring it back. And unfortunately, we don't have a choice to be like retail's dead. Until the state restructures our revenues, we do not have the luxury of saying, well, everyone shops online, so we have to have it.
We have to have brick and mortar.
And so we have to find a way to use the dollars that 10 years ago we were thinking about using, or 8 years ago. So that's my concern. I'm not saying I'm not supportive of housing, clearly I am. I want to better understand what housing small business loan is though specifically.
So it'd be small businesses that redevelop housing, do housing as their business.
So but what defines small versus what's the other option,
Yeah, do we know, is that defined in a similar way as the small business enterprise
right,
program?
what's the
small, or
threshold?
do
We probably have an we
Is that a
we went
TDC
looking
question?
yesterday that we have an outline of the program as proposed, but unfortunately, Ms. Washington, she's out of state today and couldn't come today, because otherwise I think those are better questions for her
Is
on
there
how.
a strict timeline on how we allocate? I was curious, because I have a lot of these questions too about, per your point, if it's this retail approach, I'm in your face, I'm so sorry. I'm not wearing glasses, I don't have depth perception.
Please don't hit Counselor Hall Parker.
I know, I would not want to, because I think she could take me down sorry. Okay, but per your point, we're not, oh my god, I can't stop gesturing, I'm from New Jersey, we do this. Okay, so I'm concerned, I agree with you where I want more housing, however, the idea of retail actually is that then feeds economically back in a way where we actually get those tax dollars back into the city. I understand, of course, that more housing, you can make economic arguments, but not in the same way where we're gonna see those dollars come back through our actual city government, where we know we have structural revenue issues. Is there some kind of timeline there where this, because it's ARPA, we need to allocate this out the door?
So this one's not.
It was just identified through the ARPA
It's
application
yeah.
But it's
process.
not, okay.
It was never
So we're just-
designated ARPA. Before you
just
hit your
clarify.
ARPA deadline, the intended
We
switch
just-
The
was
proposal
made.
came through.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
And
think
I
what
know
I heard
this
is
is-
good proposal, we need to
Yeah.
find $1 million to make it go.
But
Let's look at,
and it's a clarifying question since it is, so it's like a revolving loan fund, or no, is it one time? Do we know?
I think that
Because that's
she-
also
Oh,
different.
on the
I
on
think
the
it can
actual
be-
program.
Yeah, if the program's revolving, that's different. I'm
but
just
it'll
naming
take 5 or
for-
6
It does
years to
say,
come back,
at
yeah.
least on the Path to Home, that it was forgivable loans. Now, that's just
the
a,
language
now
I.
that's just a plan
question
document
'Cause-
before the program was
Yeah.
submitted,
I do
so
think
that's
we need
another,
clarity,
Rose
Because it
question.
gets into how far those dollars go.
Well, and they take
Yeah.
5 or 6 years to come back, or sometimes longer.
Right, so that's my other thing, is if it's forgivable versus revolving, I'm just naming for if
So
we
I-
put the dollars somewhere, how far they stretch. I do think it's important to know what small means. Because but granted, we also know that someone can have a big company and then have their spouse set up a small one,
Yeah.
and then they access these things.
So
We
I
see that
think
happen.
on your timing question is you don't have
You know what I'm talking
you don't have a
about.
legal time thing. This project was actually awarded several months ago, so I think if you need time to get
We need time.
Rose in,
That'd be good.
I'm not sure when she's back in town, but
I would say more than months, though.
yeah.
This has been-
Yeah, several, I mean,
It's always-
I may be, maybe I should have said a year
Yeah.
or a year and a half. So,
Well, and I mean, I think
yeah.
we get this a lot, right? Like, there's something that's aligning to the things that we've expressed that we need. And then we have to find the dollars. So $1 million could come from these dollars that are coming back, but there's probably other sources. I think back to the 5th floor that we leased out and did all ARPA investment on to, make sure that entrepreneurs are right under our nose now.
I don't know how much it
Was
was.
through CRF?
That one was funded through CRF. That was
Normally,
before ARPA.
The pathway would have been CRF out and dollars back would go to general fund or
If
facilities or
if
something.
dollars came back, a lot of CRF projects, the dollars
But
don't
this
come
one
back.
specifically
But,
though?
yeah.
So it was like, put it out today and you'll get it back later. So we were like, it needs to come right back into that pot, but is it in CRF, and does CRF have something close to what this project needs?
Are you asking about this one, or are you talking about the 5th floor?
I'm just
The 5th floor,
remembering,
it went back to CRF.
and is it sitting there now, or it's all gone?
It's a part of what we've been discussing that's available. So every time that there's been a payment in, it has been added to the available balance of the CRF.
Is that available balance in this mix, or a different bucket? That's what I'm
No.
asking.
In what fund, Christie?
The CRF fund.
Oh, I thought we
I guess what
expended
I'm
all
saying,
that.
I think
Well, it
you
is.
have dedicated.
we
all of
dedicated,
it.
but some are coming back through this one project. So I'm
Okay.
just saying,
I'm
if,
not aware of any other revenue coming back into that
I
fund.
think once that tenant potentially left, I don't know that any more revenue is coming back in from that 5th floor.
so as it was
project.
coming in, it was going right back out.
I think it was going back.
Okay.
That-
I would
from
just
what she
say-
said,
CRF
to the CRF
projects.
bucket.
I'm just saying, if we agree that this is a worthwhile project, this is one way you can fund it, but it's not the only way. I'm very protective of these dollars. They went on a ballot. They were marketed to citizens for what they would be used for. We have $75 million for housing. I just want to be really clear that we should say and do the things that we said we were gonna do. There's many of you at this table that need retail in your district, new retail. There's some of us that need redevelopment on retail, and taking 1/3 of a dedicated fund that's already not a big pot of money makes me nervous. We also signed a contract with a third party to go leverage everything that we have. And so, I mean, have we had a conversation with them about what this does
I'm
for their
challenged about that myself.
negotiation?
Yep.
So I want to be really mindful.
That
What
contract's not
third party are
completed.
you
Okay.
referring to? I just want to be clear.
It's actually called Retail Strategies is the third party.
Oh, that contract.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about a different contract.
Yeah.
No, that's what I wanted clarification.
So there's a
Okay.
contract Partner Tulsa issued with Retail Strategies. I think Counselor Bingle might have been involved, I was involved, maybe Counselor Q. And they're tasked with
Yeah.
scouting retailers to come into Tulsa.
Yeah, they're helping me right now with
Yeah.
the side grocery store stuff.
Yeah, so they need dollars to be able to leverage, at least start the conversation.
Oh, I would love for this to help with grocery stores instead. There we go.
Well, that's retail. But a big anchor, as we see, can transform a whole corridor. So I've seen it make impact in my district. As I said before, those dollars weren't enough to actually close the deal, but it started the conversation, and then we were able to find other tools. I do think there are some deals that could be impacted by $1 million, which is 1/3 of the dollars that we have allocated to it. So,
So the 3 million that you're referring to, that was in the 2017 vision package?
yes, out of the 11, there's 3 buckets,
Yeah,
Route 66, yeah.
And so there's still funds there?
This is why we were confused.
Well,
So 1.1 was used for the COVID loans, and then we have 1.5 million that went to other retail loans. TEDC is also managing that. And so then there's some other funds that are still available, plus there might have been some that might have been paying for a contractor's study. I'd have to look at it, but
But it was about $3.6 million in that third bucket.
yes.
And I
And
think
so this
that
is like,
language was
Using
still
it,
the same,
it must
wasn't
still be there, is what I'm saying.
it came back. It
So
came
the-
back from those small business
Because
support
they were
loans during
revolving
COVID.
loans.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you're
Correct.
saying
But
just.
they went out in 2020.
We would need to ask Rose more about her, because this is a path to home goal. She submitted a much more
Yeah.
substantial project application, and we would need to know more unless Reese knows off the top of his
But
head.
I'm saying,
No.
how
For a different
can
pot of money.
this not qualify under the 75 million? You know what I'm saying? I just
Yeah.
think we need to be mindful about where the dollars are to get all the
Because
things
that
done.
was specifically intended for us.
I just feel like this is like, I have an envelope with $200 in it for groceries, but then I need a repair on my car, so let me just take it out of the grocery money and repair it. Like, both needs are needed, but now how do I buy groceries? So we have dollars in different spaces and places, and I would just love for us to look. I appreciate what you're sharing, that this has been a year plus
Yeah.
ask. And I don't know on the resolution for the 75, if this is something that tucks into that space or not.
There was a rehab, 5 million bucket in that. Those funds are currently in contract negotiation with that third-party entity, that the HPN, who was awarded on that, and so that would be a conversation with them. But I think maybe there's 2 next steps.
What about the dollars for
is-
Save Our, the So High?
Some of those I think were grant, as well, so I don't know if some of those will come back in, but it feels like maybe the next 2 steps are invite, TEDC to come talk about this specific project, and then, look at if there are other sources of funds,
That we can,
and
like-
we can bring that back if there are.
Because it could be, we just need to close the gap on 200,000. That's very different than 1.06. So I
Yeah.
would like to be a little creative.
And maybe it may make a difference to all if what TEDC proposed ends up being a revolving loan, that may make a
Versus
policy
forgivable.
difference to you all, so.
I think it would
So
be.
we can follow up on those two.
I think it would be important.
It's because there's not, you all aren't in here.
As many people. I think it would be important to also clarify what small like who the small developers are and what those qualifications are.
I have it written down.
I don't know if it's, I heard what Counselor Bella said, it's not that hard to set up a new like entity and say, we're a small business, but we have this big,
It'd still be good to hear criteria.
Yeah.
People do it all the time.
Okay, yeah, we can, bring those back. So last week you, held that you held this one
First.
off of first reading. Is that what you would
think
like
so.
to do this week?
I think so, because I know
Okay.
that other counselors
Yeah,
have
we
those
don't even
questions and we
have-
still have outline.
Okay.
Well, they weren't here last week, so
Yeah.
I think this is something because it has some policy implications. If we could have 8
Yeah,
or
sure.
9 counselors in the
It's
discussion,
actually,
it'd be
it's actually a
good.
great policy question. The movement of funds is a legal movement of funds. It's a classic policy question,
Yeah.
for the policy makers.
So we gotta hold on to the dollars till we
Yes.
know what the policy backing
Yes.
is,
It's the
so.
first spend that is technically restricted to the
Right.
sales tax program. After that, it becomes a policy decision.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we'll just hold it.
It's actually a great policy question if you had like a class you were teaching.
Is anyone teaching a class?
Yeah. That's a great one. I think, are you ready to go to 14?
Yeah, that was a
Okay.
lot of discussion over.
Not as much as the
Yeah.
previous one.
Yeah.
But-
Item 14, ordinance amending 25-26 budget to make supplements another $1 million. Recognized from unappropriated fund balance within the sales tax redevelopment loan repayments fund. Loan fund, retail revitalization.
Okay, this is,
Like we danced with.
I think this one might be a little easier.
it's easier.
I view this one
Maybe.
as easier.
We'll see how they rate it. So this one is, has a little bit of history on it, and this goes back 2022, to kind of get the origins here. Tulsa Housing Authority has submitted an application with HUD. They worked with Teo on a program that was submitted as a part of that application that would use revolving retail revitalization loan fund money as a match for HUD to provide funding for some loans in the 36 North Envision Comanche area. So what we proposed was just the match of what we already had in that loan fund to be used as that loan fund is shown. But what has come back from HUD is that they would need more match into it, and that those funds would be matched and held in that neighborhood. And so that is what HUD has proposed back.
What do you mean
This-
more match?
So,
This thing in front of us says it's actually 1,050,000.
yes,
So
that's
they
the
need
HUD
us to add 50?
to add a million. So it's like a 50-50 match almost.
So 1 to, okay.
So they'll provide $1,050,000, and then they want us to add $1 million to this.
What was the
program.
original requirement when we applied for the dollars?
I don't think it was a requirement. They proposed that we had the $1.5 million contract, and that was shown to be over various areas, but that also included that neighborhood. And so it wasn't to have those to be any more restricted. That was the match, and then the request was to have HUD put money into that area. And so it's kind of more like, I don't know if they'd call that a soft match or what, but that's my understanding of how the proposal went and how the application, the proposal back from HUD. And so if we want the HUD funds, they're asking for $1 million of additional funding to be put into the revolving loan fund to be used in that area.
Do you want me to remind you of your questions on this one? One.
Sorry, we lost.
That's
lost,
okay.
like, I have it
It's-
since then, so you tell
Yeah,
us,
so
yeah.
one central question that came up, so as you all know, the council has passed an ordinance a couple years ago that said all funds that are being pushed to third parties for the purpose of economic development should have an economic incentive policy, and that improves transparency, helps align with voter intention, and helps you make those policy decisions as you go forward with your budgetary decisions. So this one, there is a retail revitalization loan fund policy. And so the question was, did this program go through that policy? So Christy's done some work on understanding that. So first, the location is one of the approved locations in that policy. So that box got checked. If you decide to appropriate these funds, there will still need to be a project-by-project application process for the projects that get funded. And those project applications would still need to go through, like how you have the technical committee and the full review committee and those processes and those incentive policies. You guys are probably more familiar with those in the housing context, but it has that in this too. So the specific projects still need to go through that process, and that was the hanging question out there last time on this one.
Counselor Decker.
I actually just wanted to ask Counselor Hall Harper, can you help us level set with the Phoenix District, 36th Street North is? I know there's the Comanche redevelopment, there's also like a foundation that's doing redevelopment in that area, and then we have some other nonprofits. So what is this in that whole reactivation?
I'm unclear about that. That's why I'm looking like, what is this? This is not a part of the choice grant,
Neighborhood.
I'm asking.
I don't.
That the city had to put, I think we put up over 5 million in infrastructure, blah, blah, blah. That
Right.
was that.
Yeah.
This is not a part of that, correct?
I think this is a separate.
Yeah.
Related.
But
THA
but I
submitted
think
application
it,
to HUD.
but I think it's all related to the same,
Project.
obviously, project
Yeah.
and area.
And area, I get that, but
But
this is a
you're
different
you're
set.
asking, is it one of our choice grant contingents
Yes.
that we had to make?
Which we already put dollars on.
Correct.
I don't think it is, but I am not. I also wasn't involved in this application, so.
So that raises some
But
concerns.
that's a follow-up question.
That
for
this,
that.
the council, this district is in is not
Right.
super clear on it, which makes it harder for the rest of us. The other question I have is, the only option, public dollars stacked on these dollars, or could other dollars do the match? And has anyone had those conversations about, again, funding sources? I understand HUD saying we want a 1-to-1 match, or a little less than 1-to-1, right? But
So
if
this
they say
is
anything,
a request from the Tulsa Housing Authority, I'm asking.
So
I believe
TDC has been the one that's been communicating with me and sharing what.
Because they would be the ones that actually, I guess, facilitate or manage the monies, but
TDC
this
would
is a,
Who was
It's
the
THA.
lead?
the first line,
THA.
first line says THA, that's Tulsa Housing.
THA was the lead applicant
So we probably
on
need to
this.
hear from them.
Submitted an application to HUD
Mm-hmm.
for a retail revitalization loan fund for $1 million. Again, outside of the choice
Mhm.
process. And of course, and this is what I'm assuming, and they're working with Rose, TEDC, obviously because of their extensive experience in doing loans and revolving loans. Yeah, I would like to know more about the request, this
Yeah.
application, and under what
And obviously,
conditions they
just
make
to
the
your
request.
point, and this may not work as much, but I was thinking about the other funds. Since that application was made in 2022, we allocated additional ARPA funds into the choice neighborhood to help with some of the water and sewer infrastructure
Right.
and things like that. So I don't know if any of that could count as match. I'm not familiar with the
Should ask.
grant.
Yeah, I mean, it's
But
good.
we have allocated actually quite a few million more into this project since that application was made too. So
When
maybe
you say that application, are you
since
referring
this
to this one or the
this
choice?
one.
Okay.
Well,
No,
I'd
this
like to
one,
know
the
if the-
2022 one.
If the matching dollars have to come from the municipality, or if they just need to come from
Yeah, I don't
the
know.
locality.
Yeah.
And what is the retail that's going in there?
That's yet to be determined, and that would still need to go through that selection process. So that would still go through the technical review committee, full review committee.
But is there a plan or an idea or a strategy? I mean,
I don't.
is it
I
dispensaries
don't
or is it
know.
a grocery store? You know what I mean?
Yeah, what are the specifics?
Yeah.
Generals.
Yeah, is it services that isn't, not existing now?
Yeah,
Is it fast food? Like, you know what I mean?
exactly.
We just need to know.
Okay, any other questions or comments on item 14?
No.
So then leave it up.
Yay.
Just confirming that it's also being pulled.
Is that,
Is that?
are we going forward with that?
I think we should
Counselor
not,
Bengal,
yeah.
Is that one a pull
I
from
think-
First Street
yes.
as well?
I think it is.
I think
We're
so.
pulling item 14,
14 from
And
First
13.
Street.
Okay.
13 and 14, okay.
There's.
We need to have more of the counselors here for these kind of
Well,
discussions.
also, I think we got the questions answered, like, just for context for people that weren't here last week, we had like questions about what was being moved where and what the history of it was. Thank you for providing all that, like, I think we got those answered internally, so now it turns out we have external questions, so.
Yeah.
Just naming, because I feel bad that we're holding it 2 weeks, but now we know.
Okay, so we're
And
moving
I
on.
wanna be cautious too. I mean, I know we're talking
Item
about
15.
$260,000 and $1 million here and $1 million there. It all adds up.
But we're not
And when
holding
the-
it to 60.
No, but I'm
Okay.
just like, I'm hearing a little bit like, whoa, we're having really deep conversations about in $1 billion budget city, small money. I don't think it's small money to the public, especially when the narrative's out there that somehow we're not meeting all our obligations. So I think we have to do these,
Yeah,
we need to dig in.
okay.
So,
We are moving to 15.
We are.
We're done with those other two.
15 and 16 should probably come together, right?
Yes.
We're not talking about 15 and 16. Are you doing 15 and 16 together?
They're together.
Okay.
They're
Well,
together.
They're together with one fabulous.
Real quick.
Thank you for enduring.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, well, you know, that's okay.
Yeah.
All of it is relevant.
I gotta pull the reins back, ladies, let me speak. Discussion with representatives from Family Safety Center on current priorities, projects, and additional organization updates. This is sponsored by Counselor Dutton. In discussion with representatives from Domestic Violence Intervention Services regarding programs, efforts, and priorities, including a comparison of our numbers to similar-sized cities and local resources used to mitigate such incidents. Also sponsored by Counselor Dutton. All right, thank you for staying for so long.
Oh, you're welcome, I'm used to this. You know, it's okay.
Save the best for last, obviously.
That's right. Well, this is, all of that plays into this too. I mean, you know, all of it is interrelated. And I'm Suzanne Stewart, I'm the CEO for the Family Safety Center, and I'm here representing our partners. And as we talk about, and I know you've got brain stuff going on after all of this, so I'm gonna try to be as succinct and clear as I can, and then leave some time for questions. And if you have other questions, you can always write me and I'll communicate with you. But talking with my counterparts, Tracy Lyle at Divis and with Mara Gooten at the Child Advocacy Network, our latest partner, we decided we would go ahead and do this together because all of this is intersectional. You know, when you talk about public safety, you talk about homicide prevention, you talk about the high numbers that we've had in the state and in Tulsa. All of that affects families, it affects relationships, it affects neighborhoods, it affects businesses, and all of that is so interrelated that as we talk about the partnerships that we have in our community and how that compares with other communities and what's going on there, you know, this whole concept of public-private partnership is the big thing that we are all dealing with in the universe of both CAN and the Family Safety Center. CAN is doing, this is 40 years of Child Advocacy Network and 20 years for us. Divis is also up there in terms of the numbers of years of their operations. So, you know, there's a wonderful, wonderful history of work in the community to try to reduce these different things. Oops,
You just
I
hit the
forgot which
arrow.
one. This one?
Just the arrow.
The arrow.
Down at the bottom.
Oh, this
There
one.
you go.
Woo-hoo, there we go. So I'm going to start with Family Safety Center. You see case on the name. So the building, you know, is $24 million. City of Tulsa did $1 million in ARPA funds, Tulsa County did 2, the state did 2. Case family, Mike Case came up with a $2.4 million donation and asked that we name the facility after him. Hardesty also was one of the first people in. So $5 million from the community that helped with this building, and the rest of it has all been private. We served this last year, this number of people, 6,600 total clients, around 13,000 services. Medical services are those that include strangulation assessment, forensic exams, and SANE exams that are performed. Legal services provided by our partners from Legal Aid Services and DIVIS. Law enforcement. Right now, we house the Domestic Violence Unit from Tulsa Tulsa Police Department, the Special Victims Unit upstairs, and Victim Advocacy Center upstairs. Will be moving with us to the new building when we open up. So Tulsa Metropolitan Ministry also on site helping with spiritual support services across the multi-faith spectrum. Lots of self-sufficiency, referrals to Shelter for 79, and then we have a very robust kids program who've been exposed to violence. This year we had 37 kids in our Camp Hope. It's a year-round program where we work with the kids and their guardian families. These are kids who may have been victimized or have seen horrible things. And this is the 15th year for that program. If you turn the page, you'll see some of the numbers from DIVIS. DIVIS is one of our partners on site. Of course, they have their own campus out northeast. And that campus includes shelter facilities, it includes transitional living, and then their main counseling services building. The people that are headquartered from DIVIS within our facility include advocates. There are 4 of them. We have 1 attorney and we have 1 child care person. So these numbers pertain particularly to the people that are working both in our facility, in the shelter services, and in their regular counseling offices, all the way across the board. So 3900 crisis line, that's the 1-800 number, 918 help me number, text to the crisis line. Legal services, those are the ones that are offered through us. Legal services continues to be the highest requested service for all of our clients. We can't even begin to meet that need. And as I mentioned, we're down to 1 attorney from DIVIS and 2 attorneys with legal aid. All of those are funded through Department of Justice funds, and yes.
How many
Or
do
do
you,
those still exist?
how many would you need?
Barely.
Okay.
You have 3, how many is ideal for your need?
7.
7 total.
Mhm.
Thank you.
We would love to have 7. Child care services, we have child care on site. We had around 2,000 kids last year come through our child care services. Perpetrators, that's through their batters intervention treatment programs, which are kind of, there's some legislation that we're working on for alternative BIP programming that would include a shorter 26-week program as opposed to the full 52-week program for particular low-risk offenders for that program, which gets them to where they need to go quicker. Tulsa and Oklahoma City have been designated as pilot programs for that. So that program is under works right now. Housing is transitional housing. We also at Family Safety Center receive emergency housing funds. We were through HUD, and we were able to, in the city of Tulsa, we were able to house 37 families this last year through those funds, and we're now in the process of reapplying for next year. And then Child Advocacy Network, of course, our new neighbor, and then request that. But then we traditionally have had to go through that same process, going through Child Crisis and DHS, which we still have to do, but being right next door, the 2 of us are working together on developing those different policies, going forward to help facilitate timing and more efficiency. They serve a huge variety of people, 68 counties, 11 states, 9 tribes, and a bunch of federal investigative agencies. peer comparisons. It was easiest for us to look at Tulsa and Oklahoma City because quite frankly, every state has different legislation and statutes that define what constitutes domestic violence. And so for us, it was easier to compare to Oklahoma City. Palomar is our equivalent over there. They have been open 6 years now. They are in the process of building a new facility, 75,000 square feet, completely funded by the Oklahoma City MAPS program.
Is that the one that was just
That's
approved or
three.
a previous one?
Like 2
Okay.
years ago.
They
Yeah.
do very
Three.
focused.
$42 million from Oklahoma City.
Cheaper than road widening.
Not 5 or 2.
Not
One.
not 1, not 2, not 5. We're very grateful for what we got.
Sure.
We could always use more. And then you can see how it kind of compares. They're a little bit bigger than us. They have a 40,000 square foot facility right now. We only have 15, so we're limited in the numbers of partners we can have. They have more partners on site. But everything else is really pretty comparable in terms of their programming. Same thing with Divis and the YWCA. The YWCA is the counterpart to Divis in Oklahoma City. Again, you can see that we spend a lot more time with court advocacy, meaning our advocates going to court, assistance with protective orders, and legal services. We do a lot of sexual assault exams. Those are their advocate volunteers that attend every sane exam that happens at Hillcrest Hospital. And then certainly the shelter program is really pretty comparable. And then you get into the children. I know it's hard to tell what those are, but those are different communities. I'll start at the left. The Care Center, these are the child advocacy centers in each of these communities comparable to CAN. The Care Center in Oklahoma City, 1,122 kids. Abbott House next is in Norman, that was 1,000. Denver is next at 1,348. Kansas City at 991. Charleston, South Carolina, 1165, and that is the D. Norton Child Advocacy Center. Richmond as Child Advocacy Center is 895. Lexington says Children's Advocacy, and that's 882. Detroit, 2,180. Syracuse, New York, McMahon Ryan Child Advocacy Center, 1,536, and Tulsa at 1,774, Child Advocacy Network in the Teal. So that gives you an idea of how other communities are operating. Now we, as a multidisciplinary team, have been in existence longer. We're one of the very first types of that organization to be put into place, as is our Family Safety Center. We were one of the first 15, and as I said, we're celebrating 20 years this next year. I think one of the things that's really telling that we track, TPD shares all of their DV calls with us through the 911 system, and we track all of the zip codes that come through us. We also use a lot of the equality indicators as measurements for public safety and justice. And then we track every zip code of everybody that comes in the door, both new clients and past clients. When we took all the TPD 911 calls and we compared them to our 911 calls.
Is this for a year or what's the time?
This is from April of 24 to December of 24, when we started tracking this way. So the red line is us and our clients, and the blue line are the TPD 911 calls, which correlate to those different zip codes, right? So it's kind of interesting. We thought it was really interesting in looking at this because the peaks and the valleys all coincide. You know, there are gaps in between, but what that tells us is that Tulsa Police requires, the state statute requires law enforcement to complete what's called a lethality assessment protocol with each call, which refers them into services. You can tell that law enforcement, and they have to document on their reports that they make these referrals, But you can see the numbers of people that actually show up are not the same numbers of people who actually make the call. So our goal is to shorten those gaps as we go through the future and get more people in. I'll tell you to date, well, I didn't include this graph, but I'll send it to you if you'd like. But starting in 2018, we started seeing a real decline in the numbers of DV calls coming into 911. The high peak was 23,400 in 2016. And it dropped consecutive years all the way to 2019 when it got down to 20,000 calls. And then it went up to 21,000, back down to 20, back down to 18,121. And by 2024, we had 15,649 for the year, this last year, in terms of 911 calls. And then this year to date, we've got 13,150. So we're going to end up about the same thing as we did this last year. And then last but not least, just a little bit about the building. We're funded at the $24 million rate. We're raising operating funds right now. We know it's going to cost us about $500,000 a year to operate the building, which includes security, et cetera. Okay. I've been there, I know.
Yes.
And, but we're raising about $500,000 a year to start operating costs. We are going to be housing all of the law enforcement that I mentioned for City of Tulsa. The Sheriff's Department will have some victim advocates in the location. We are in discussions with the District Court about moving into the courtroom for all the PO docket. And if that happens, then we will be handling all the protective orders and restraining orders filed in Tulsa County through that docket. Be about 150 people a day. That'll be coming through there. We are also in conversations with both the Muskogee Nation and the Cherokee Nation for the Light Horse and the Marshal Service family violence detectives to come into the building and partner with our family violence detectives. We have programs ongoing which include, I think, some really innovative things. We call, one of them is our domestic caution indicator. I'm not going to give you a lot of details about that, but the bottom line is that there are so many 911 calls when law enforcement shows up that the perpetrator is gone on arrival. When those people go, they hide, you know, and when there are even cases of really severe abuse and physical assault, if there's obviously probable cause for arrest without a warrant. And in Tulsa's case, and in state statute, we have 72 hours to make that arrest for probable cause on those serious cases without a warrant. What has been going on in the past is that there's a list of people that goes into the system at TPD, and if someone is stopped for some other reason somewhere along the line in that 72 hours, there's an opportunity for them to be arrested for probable cause for this particular violent physical assault. Now we figured out a way to really follow up on that a little bit better, and Tulsa Police Department has assigned 2 officers to work with us on really focusing on those folks. And we have seen our arrests go up for an average of 120 a month. Over an 8-week period, we actually picked up another 162 arrests for violent physical assault. What that does is it establishes more trust for law enforcement from the victims, right? They're actually seeing someone who cares, and that just because somebody leaves doesn't mean that nobody cares what happened to them. They're going to try to find out, figure what's going on, and make sure that person is held accountable. The second thing is it reduces repeat calls to the same residents when those people come back and batter their victim again. So that's another thing. So that reduces the numbers of repeat calls that we have going forward. And most importantly, it sends a message to those perpetrators that just because you run away doesn't mean we're not going to find you and you're not going to be held accountable. So we're really excited about the potential for that program. That's now become part of it. As long as we're seeing results from that, then we're going to go forward with it. But this is the building. We are now at a point in development where we are looking at November 17th as a what we call our punch list when we start going through the building. Most of the internal finishes and all the connections will be complete. On November 17th, we've divided the building into 4 sections for this purpose. So once we complete Section A, starting November 17th, we'll move new furniture into Section A starting December 1st, which means the actual relocation from our current facility in the basement of the police court's office will happen hopefully the week of January 26th. Take us a week. Once we're in there, then we're looking at February, and we will do all of our operations out of that location with all of the new partners, the existing partners, and an increased $500,000 a year operating cost. That concludes my presentation. I'm open for questions.
Thank you. I love that.
So I was supposed to take the tour
Yes.
with Vanessa, and due to unforeseen circumstances on Highway 51, I got jammed up in an accident. I walked into the trailer to that's on the south side.
Uh-huh.
As soon as I walked in, I saw this big meeting going on. I was like,
That was
oh.
us.
I didn't know that. I was like, oh, I'm in the wrong place. And closed the door.
I know, I saw you come in, and then you turned around and went. I went, what, wait, where did
I
we
was
go?
like, oh my gosh.
No, but it was
comedy
good because it was so hot. It's
Yeah,
much
it
better
was
now,
hot.
the HVAC is on the first floor.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
So are you gonna do another one?
Oh, yeah, we'll probably wait right now until right before we're ready to do the punch list.
Okay.
Because what's happened is that we've been doing this in phases. So the first section, which is the main entry in medical, is getting ready to be complete at the end of the month. And so probably that second week in November before the 17th, we will schedule another tour real quickly for people to go in and see where we are. Now the walls are up, the ceilings are up, we're putting in tile, we're putting in carpet, we're putting in the millwork. All of the IT and communications pieces are coming together in that. And you'll be able to actually know where you are.
This has moved quick.
It's been a year. We
I feel
started
like we just had that ceremony, like last
September of '24.
I was just gonna say, I
Yeah.
think it was last year, and here we are, and you're
And here
almost
we
done.
are, but you know what? It's been 10 years getting here.
Yeah.
So we've been ready for a long time
And
needed it. And so, we'll be coming back to you with some regular reports and maybe like everybody else lining up for a request for some help with some of our ongoing operational costs in a small way. But our intent right now is to keep the public-private partnership going. Our programming is funded mostly by, a lot of it right now, about 30%, 35% by federal grants, which are, as
Tenuous.
everybody else is, tenuous. We're doing fine. We haven't lost anything so far. We do have private sector dollars that are coming in that are helping support us through philanthropic and private and individual donations. We do have a small amount of money, $155,000 a year, that comes through the police department to us to help fund a couple of staff people. And the city's been very gracious to provide a security person for us in our current location, who will be coming with us, but we're going to have to add 2 more. So we are working with the private sector right now, philanthropic sector, to try to raise additional funds and establish a maintenance fund for the building and some operation funds, as well as some of our other public counterparts to try to get some additional public money. $500,000 a year for what we need to do is not a big chunk, and we feel if we spread it out among a variety of partners, kind of like we do now, that it's going to be a better bite for everybody to chew on.
Got some challenges.
That was my
Counselor?
question. Thank you. Thank you for everything you do. I just did want to amplify how fast, I know it's a 10-year strategy, but how fast the dollars had to come in. Suzanne was out beating the bushes, as was her team, her board, and never a reduction in services, all the while building a facility for now and the future. So kudos, hat off to you.
Thank you.
You are a superwoman. Somebody in town that I'm always like looking up to. How can I do what Suzanne does? Google tells me that unfortunately, while we have a counterpart in Oklahoma City, we have more demand in Tulsa.
Yes.
And more
incidents. So it looks like we're about 1/3 higher to them. Just around, we're at like a 950 incidents per 100,000 Tolsons, and they're at like 650. So questions for another day, and maybe I underlined Office of Health and Wellbeing. To me, this might be a place where we look at that, like what is causing Tolsons to have
we're
more
looking
family
at that.
violence?
We're
Yes.
looking at that. So the mayor's put together a DV committee that
Okay.
involves us, involves DIVIS, law enforcement, prosecution, public defenders. Battered Women's Justice Project is helping coordinate that. And that has been the question that we've been asking ourselves is why is that?
Because we're a smaller community overall with higher rate, and that makes me wonder too, the accountability piece you just talked about with the domestic caution indicator, like as we start to hold people to account, maybe that
Makes
also
a big difference.
leads to reduction of repeat, right?
Yeah.
So thank you for confirming kind of where I was thinking with that.
Yep.
So I heard kind of towards the end there that maybe our nearby municipal partners will be asked to share in the cost, because we know the next largest city in Oklahoma is Broken Arrow. I'm
We have
alarmed
heard-
at
yeah.
the rate of suicide murders that are happening in that community. As a district representative that borders that community, we think in district lines, but culturally and community-wise, this is going on.
Ironically, the murder-suicides that are related to all of this are ones that are very rarely evident up front, and very few people seek services for that in advance. A lot of these incidents happen and there is a trigger for it. There will be underlying stuff going on that they don't share with anybody else, and maybe even the neighborhood doesn't see it, or they do see it and they don't know what to do about it. That's the piece that we need to
Yeah.
work on, is that intervention piece.
Maybe the
So-
children are an early indicator. That was the question I had.
Exactly, because that is a huge thing. And there's another piece of this, and you'll see, and I know you've seen in the news lately, some pretty violent domestic violence cases that have occurred. I think the most recent was a perpetrator who kidnapped his girlfriend, stole a
accident.
car, and,
Last
you know, all of this kind of stuff. So what we're learning about is that these really violent people, what I call the high-risk offenders, have no qualms about taking other people out with them when they go. And that's another category of folks that we need to get our hands around.
So you talked about TPD will be embedded in this facility the same way they are. So right now, right, you're embedded in our facility, they're gonna embed in your facility.
Right.
Is there a shared cost allocation that we've talked about, or is that something that we need to have a discussion
I
about?
think that's something we need to have a little
Okay.
discussion about. The Muskogee Nation was generous enough to us to actually provide the funding for all of the new furniture in the building, all of the new office furniture going in. It's an almost $1 million gift from the Muskogee Nation. And as I mentioned, we're talking about housing some of their LIHORs. The way this building is set, because we've got public agencies, private agencies, the courts, us, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 4 separate networks within the building, and firewall systems. So law enforcement has their section, they control everything in there. The courts have their section, they control everything in there. DIVIS has 11 offices, they control within their 11 offices, and then we control everything else.
So on the part apportioned to TPD, which is our entity, is that in that 500,000 that you're talking about, the operations, or that's outside of that?
We had not thought about, quite frankly, charging anybody for utilities or a prorated share of that. We were looking at, the 500,000 does include those utilities and stuff that we've not had to pay.
Right, with the
In the
smaller
past,
facility.
right, in the smaller facility.
Okay.
But it also includes about 150,000 for security that we haven't had to offset. We need 3 security people on our section of the building. The sheriff's department has committed to 2 security people
And did you
for the
say
courts.
Tulsa City Security has one over there, or that's county?
We have 1.
From the city?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, I think we have ongoing discussions and, you know, I think thank you for bringing this forward. Thank you for making time as you're getting ready to do a punch list and sitting through our discussions. But as we talk about Office of Health and Wellbeing and the Office of Children, Family and Youth, like to me, the TPD piece that dovetails here, or even the paramedic piece or whatever, that's like where we thread the needle, in my mind. And it sounds like there's some needs over there that we should, you know, have a conversation about for ongoing support. Thank you for mentioning that Oklahoma City made a $42 million investment in their facility. So, you know, we have the goal, right? I say this in food security, so I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but the goal with these kind of social services is we would love to be out of business.
Exactly.
Right? We would love to
Exactly.
not need all this.
Exactly.
So right now, it's like we've built for the needs that we know we have, but hopefully as we do these other interventions and we make wise investments in the upstream preventions, housing, homelessness, you know, all the things that
Exactly.
can divert this activity, or at least lower the incidence, then we have other options. But
Exactly.
it took us 10 years just to get the building, and it'll probably take an infinite number of years probably, so we start to really see those measurable outcomes. But even things like this domestic caution indicator, what you
Yeah,
just shared,
lots
that
of- lots of-
162, I mean, those are the things I would like to like say that's working, or, you know, how do we scale?
Exactly, exactly. And I would like to say this one thing too. You know, the numbers say a lot about Tulsa and Oklahoma City, but the other thing that the numbers tell us is that more people are calling in for services here than necessarily they do in Oklahoma City. And what that tells me is that we're doing a better job of getting that information to the general public through all of our different outlets,
And
whether it's
building
you,
trust, yeah.
whether it's you working through the opera and the programming that you do there, whether it's through our partners and their newsletters and their education outreach, the press, the media, everybody that is engaged in all of this work, the more information that we're making available to the public, the better response, the more people we're gonna have coming through the door. And I'm telling you, we've got the historical data that if you come in and you seek services, you're not gonna be murdered. We can help keep you safe, we can help find you safe space, and we can help you with a plan to keep you there, whether you choose to leave or not, until or if you are ever ready to leave or not.
And protect their children.
And protect their
And
children.
break the cycle.
And, you know, so, and that's the thing with our Camp Hope program. Let me see, we averaged, I mean, normally up until this last year, we've had around 90 kids at our camp. We didn't do a camp last year because there was some changeover going in the program. But up until that time, we had 90 kids a year that we were working with their guardian families. So that's 9,720 kids. Some of them repeats, and in fact, a lot of the kids that graduated from our camp in 2015, 16, 17 are coming back as counselors for us now. In fact, we had 2 that actually joined the sheriff's department because their encounter with law enforcement really showed them that there was a different way. And then year before last, one of our campers was actually recognized as the National Camper of the Year, National Camp Hope Camper of the Year, because of her growth and her path towards healing going forward. So, you know, that's where we're making a really big impact, is showing these young people that there is an alternative to this. There are ways that we can work with hope, with resilience, with grit, with services and information to help them make better and healthier life choices.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Counselor? you
Yeah,
have
I
anything to
just
add?
wanted to agree with Counselor Dr. Wright and how grateful we are to have you here in Tulsa and to be able to provide these services and gather all the resources together to make this happen. It's pretty phenomenal. I appreciate you being here today. I also wanted to highlight that this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and that this is a great way to educate yourself on the issues that we face as Tulsans. And I'm concerned about the number of the children. We can do this another time. I know it's late. You've been here so patiently for so long, and I appreciate that. But I would like to have further data about the number of children.
From
that-
Can?
Yes, we have the number here, 37, and how that looks over years, if that's increased over time, if that's an economic issue. I'd just kind of like to break down some more data. And I also think that this is going to work well with our children, youth, and families program.
I would agree with that. And in fact, the mayor toured through early last week with his team.
Yeah, good.
And was very supportive and made the same comments.
Yeah.
And his comment to me was, what can we do to help you now?
Mhm.
So we've had the same, had the same conversation. And I think there's lots of opportunity for us within everything that's going on in the community at all these different levels. In particular, we were tracking the numbers of, because we do zip codes, we know how many homeless people or unhoused people are coming to see us. It averages about 100 a year, which is not out of 6,700 this year and maybe 14,000, almost 14,000 in 2019 before COVID. That 100 is not a big percentage of it. We know when we relocate, that number is going to change, and the complexity and the needs of that community is going to change because we're we're handling a lot of the population who are coming out of jail, who are coming from the day center, who are walking up and down Denver, and, that group right now, when we move to 2829 South Sheridan, it's a different dynamic and a different demographic. The problem with those folks in getting help from us specifically, particular when they want to come in and get protective orders, is they don't know the names of their abusers. They don't have an address where we can find them. They're mobile. And, it's very difficult to try to find them additional housing support. One of the things that we do need in Tulsa are more emergency shelter beds for victims and their families. And we need the support personnel to staff those beds. It's just like the situation with a hospital. You may have a hospital that has 1,100 hospital beds in it, but if you don't have the nursing and doctor staff to service those beds, you can't use those beds. And that's the way it works in shelters. You've got to have staff to be able to handle your capacity. There aren't enough social workers and people that are willing to work in this field anymore to handle capacity. So even if we have enough ostensible beds, ostensible rooms, we don't have the people to help staff that. And so what do you do with those beds? You can't really use them. So there's a lot of dynamic that's moving in terms of social dynamics in the community for education, training, and professionals, for salaries, for training and educating professionals. And most people now are going into the different for-profit, or I don't want to say for-profit, but not your traditional non-profit social worker salary range. And that's the same issue with attorneys. You don't find pro bono attorneys or attorneys working for nonprofits making $45,000 to $55,000 a year when you can work for a private law firm and make $85,000 to $95,000 coming out of college. So there's a lot of moving pieces with all of that in order for us to provide appropriate services across a wide variety of them.
Well, I think that we're all quite aware as well that we don't have enough services for women. We don't have the shelter capacity if there are unhoused women. I know that the Salvation Army is like 60-40, 60% men, 40% women.
And older people.
Yeah,
Older
seniors, yeah,
seniors
there's a lot
in
of
particular,
seniors.
at-risk seniors who are having to move out of a house into a more intermediate care facility type thing that has incidents of violence, whether it's financial abuse or whether it's actual physical abuse. Finding space for a senior person like that is incredibly difficult. Lots of things to think about. But we thank you for your support and for the opportunity to talk about it.
Well, thank you for being here, Counselor Dutton. Thank you for bringing this to the table with item number 17. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.